Well, g'day flatties and reality defenders. This is the legendary CT from Down Under. Hey, thank you. Okay, today we're dealing with the one globe proof of the 3 and maybe 6 Bitcoin challenge. And my one globe proof is Southern Flights, in particular flight routes QF27 and 28. Now, I've done a few videos relating to these flights. I took these flights myself and analysed them, and they're definitely globe proof. So let's recap with the Bitcoin challenge.
And by the way, I offer 3 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof. So anyone that doesn't think the Earth is a globe, you must have a good reason. 1 proof of the globe, and you win 3 Bitcoins. That's $300,000 by the time you hear this.
Okay, I got 1 proof of the globe. I think I'm in for a good chance here for these Bitcoins. So let's see what we have to do to get the Bitcoin.
3 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof. Watch the daily video each day for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, if you think you have a proof, send it to me. But before you do, hit the question mark button, which is the frequently asked questions, and see if your question is already answered there, which it probably is.
Okay, yes, I've done all that. My question has not been answered effectively. So I'm going to proceed with my 1 globe proof and my 3 and maybe 6 Bitcoin claim. And let's do the housekeeping before we carry on. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. The GoFundMe for the final experiment, the trip to Antarctica, it's still open. I'm still in considerable deficit in funds there, and I'd really appreciate it if anybody wanted to donate and send some funds there. I'll put the link in the description, and the link to the list of videos related to the final experiments on the Final Experiment channel will be in the description as well. Now, I'm going to first deal with this. This is why Flat Earth Dave will agree that QF2728 is a globe proof. Now, we understand that if he's to pay up, he is to agree that this is a globe proof, and he has already agreed on this, and we'll go through that.
A great way to prove that the Earth is not a ball, or the Earth is a ball, is to take a trip from the tip of Africa, or better yet, South America, to Australia or New Zealand, and see if it takes 12 hours or the amount of time it should take if the Earth was a ball, because there are no shortcuts on a flat Earth.
Right. So we'll repeat that. A great way to prove that the Earth is a ball is to take a trip from the tip of Africa, or better yet, South America, to Australia or New Zealand, and see if it takes 12 hours or the amount of time it should take if the Earth was a ball. Okay, I've taken this flight from South America to Australia, and it took 13 and a half hours or thereabouts, which is the amount of time it should take if the Earth was a ball. So that's satisfied. That's the globe proof.
All right, then how's this one for you? If I were, just give me a sec, Dirth. If I were to book the flight, for argument's sake, okay, just hear me out. If I was to book this flight and fly from Sydney to Chile, and I stayed awake the whole time, and as far as I could tell, there was no refueling, and we did it in the allotted 14 hours, whatever it was, if I were to do that, would that put a dent in the flat Earth model, hypothetically?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would.
It would change. It would add a lot of questions for sure, if not crush the flat Earth model. But you would have to be on a normal plane, which is pretty easy to identify. You could tell that you're flying at on a normal speed, and it would be impossible on a flat Earth if that's the case. So let's do it.
Right. So, according to Dave, this would absolutely put a dent in the flat Earth, if not crush the flat Earth model. So it would have to be a normal plane, normal speed. It would be impossible on a flat Earth. Well, I've taken this flight and I've documented it in a couple of videos, and it was a normal plane, and I've proved it travelled at normal speed, and I've proved that it would be impossible on a flat Earth. So that fulfills the requirement of one globe proof. Now, of course, this interchange took place quite a few years ago, and since then it has come to light that this flight exists and the flat earthers acknowledge it. But now Flat Earth Dave is relying on the non-normal plane and non-normal speed, and we'll get to that, and we've already dealt with that in a separate video, but we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So basically, all these requirements have been fulfilled, including the normal plane and normal speed. So this is indeed the one globe proof that Dave is maybe not looking for.
If I were to do that, if I were to fly from Sydney International to Chile, and I'd been promised a direct non-stop flight, and I made it explicit to the travel agent. I said to her, listen, I'm only going to book this flight if you can promise me it's direct, and I made up a bullshit excuse as to why, and she promised me, yep, we can do that, no worries. If I were to get this flight direct and it was mysteriously cancelled and I was mysteriously rerouted through Auckland or whatever, my question to the live chat is, those of you who still want to hold on to the ball Earth, would you guys reconsider your opinions? Because the panel, Dirth has just told me he'd reconsider his opinions if the evidence said it was that the flights didn't work the way that the Flat Earth says they would. Would you ball Earthers change your opinions if all of a sudden I got rerouted through Auckland from a direct flight? Would you change your mind? Because if you wouldn't...
I just wanted to interrupt that for a minute, because he said that Dirth and everybody there would be willing to change their mind if the evidence presented itself. I'm seriously doubting that. And so this guy says, well, if there was a flight that you wanted to take there, Sydney to Santiago, which I did take, if you happen to be unlucky enough to have your flight cancelled or diverted, which rarely happens, then would you consider that the Earth was a ball? Well, that's not a valid proposal, because flights do get cancelled. Flights do get diverted. What you've got to look at is how many of them are cancelled, how many of them are diverted, and the reason for those events. But the majority of these flights, many, they have flights every day. So they're not all diverted, they're not all cancelled. The flight actually happens. So are you people who claiming that they follow the evidence, are you willing to change your mind about the Earth being a globe?
Then maybe no evidence will change your mind, and this isn't really the conversation for you. The only reason why I, Dave, Dirth, or Matrix got into this field of inquiry is because we were willing to change our minds. And I, for one, would be willing to change it straight back again. I'm not invested in any of this, but it seems to me that a lot of ball earthers, they're completely invested in the ball Earth. It would shatter their whole paradigm if they found out they weren't living on a ball. Dirth, I'll throw to you.
That would shatter the flat Earth, explanation. It would still leave a lot of other questions. But if a chain link chain has a broken link in it, it's broken. So I haven't found any that break the flat Earth. I've found lots that break the ball Earth. But if we can just show that you can make that flight, that would change everything.
So that flight would break the flat Earth. That would be a link in the chain that broke the flat Earth, and it would change everything. So that was a masterful piece of projection there about, if you saw the evidence, would you change your mind? Because we know very well how flat earthers behave when the evidence points to a globe. So again, flat earthers have been proven wrong here. Dave has admitted himself that this flight would break the flat Earth. So what's happened since then? Well, we'll look at that in a minute. But first, we look at samples of these flights that taken from Flight Radar 24, including the flight that I took. And QF27, the average flight time, is 12 hours. from Sydney to Santiago. QF28, the average flight time is 13 hours and 38 minutes. Now, I've gone through this in previous videos about what all this means, but basically this fulfills the requirement of the flight taking the amount of time that is consistent with the globe and not consistent with a flat Earth. So on the flat Earth, the QF27, for example, would be required to travel at 2,358 kilometres an hour, which is even well beyond what the flat earthers are trying to say it can do anyway. It's still way beyond the capability even with significant tailwinds. So the average tailwind on this flight is 55 kilometres an hour. So not the large tailwind that the flat earthers will try to claim to deny that this flight can only happen on a globe. Now, we know that Dave is invoking the non-normal aeroplane and the supersonic speeds in order to be able to deny the 3 Bitcoin challenge. So here is a comment recently on my way back from the final experiment. I took QF 28, and here Dave admits that the flight exists, but he's claiming some false arguments to try and make out like it's a special plane, supersonic speeds. So Santiago to Sydney is a real flight, Dave. You're admitting it yourself, so there's your globe proof you've admitted. But then you try to weasel out of it with these statements here, which none of these statements are true, except the fact that Max Egan did it is true. It's a real flight is true. The rest of this stuff is not true. And this comment here from Steve. This is Hey Dude 7568. This guy Steve said he'd pay me $500 if I live stream getting on the plane and getting off, which I did do, and he did pay the $500. But before, he was all cocky about this. Let's see, my friend, if he does it. I'll pay and do a worthwhile video on it because I haven't seen a single one yet. Well, I've not seen the worthwhile video, but I did get the payment. That's another story about how we rationalise this, but we'll concentrate on this challenge today. Also from those comments. So somebody's said, oh, look, he's heading south. And Hey Dude, which is Steve, says, oh, nothing at all from Critical Thing, not a peep. Of course not. The flight is BS. Somebody pointed out, oh, wait a minute. He's live streamed himself getting on the plane 3 hours ago. So Steve was still a little bit cocky there, even after I'd live streamed getting on the plane. Anyway, let's look at this. I asked my research assistant to evaluate the truth of this statement. And yes, Santiago to Sydney is a real flight. Yeah, that's true. It flies at 45,000 to 50,000 feet. No, this is false. So the service ceiling of a Boeing 737 Dreamliner is 43,000 feet. So it cannot go to above 45,000 feet as it exceeds the design and certification limits, not just most aircraft, but the Dreamliner itself. There are tailwinds up to 350 mile an hour. Now, ChatGPT says this is partially true because there are jet streams, but notice they can occasionally reach speeds of 200 to 250 mile an hour, but 350 mile an hour is extremely rare. So Dave is relying on these jet streams of the extremely rare jet stream to occur every day and exactly in the right direction to be a tailwind, which is, of course, ridiculous. And they are more commonly in the range of 80 to 150 mile an hour, That's about right, but remember, they may not be in the direction you want, and they are not there over the whole journey. So the statement exaggerates the typical wind speeds. So no 350 mile an hour tailwinds, and there are other reasons why there's no tailwind on QF28, Santiago to Sydney, and I've covered that in another video. So the other one here is the Dreamliner has 7 layers of heat-resistant paint. No evidence has been presented for this. This is in fact false. The Dreamliner does not have 7 layers of heat-resistant paint. False. The Dreamliner flies supersonic. False. No, it does not. It has a maximum cruise speed of Mach 0.9, which is approximately 593 mile an hour. So no supersonic flight. And we'll go into this, but even with the assistance of a tailwind, it is impossible for this flight to occur on a flat Earth. So that's the one globe proof. Now, they talk about the jet stream and how they plan for the jet stream. So a little bit of information about this, not a lot here. We'll just quickly rinse through this, and you can read that at your leisure later. But it completely falsifies the idea of a constant tailwind of 350 mile an hour. Now, more recently, all the hardcore flat earth big names had to get together for a cope fest in the light of several prominent flat earthers switching back to the globe following the final experiment. And here is some recent information about the Southern flights, and we will deal with this.
Question. So this is something that was brought up to me yesterday by somebody close to me, obviously. But the flights from Argentina over to Australia. Now, the question is how are these flights quicker than what they should be?
That's a very good question. How are they quicker than what they should be on a flat Earth? Well, I've explained that fully in more than one video. I'll put the links in the description.
Quote unquote, from globe measurements to FE measurements. Are these flights, these flights that people are on, they're saying that they're taking 13 hours less. That was the number that was given to me, that it was 13 hours less to go from point A to point B, Argentina to Australia. So I don't know. I don't have the data, but.
See that? He says he doesn't know anything. He doesn't have the data. Why doesn't he check with someone who knows something, someone who has the data? No, he asked Flat Earth Dave, who has no real data. He's got an agenda. He has no facts, figures, or anything. Why doesn't this guy ask someone who knows?
Can somebody touch base on the flights and how they're quicker than what they are, longer than what they should be?
Yeah, so in the South, many of us have talked about it. All of the speed records for sailboats happen in the North.
Sorry, forget the sailboats. We're talking about flying planes here. So sailboats really has nothing to do with it.
Right, when it's windier in the South, makes no sense. Well, GPS, NASA run GPS is how they determine distances. So, the Antarctic sailboat race, the average speed that these guys are going, according to GPS, is like 4 miles per hour. These boats can go 4 miles per hour when they're tied up at the dock. So the thing is, if you look from my glasses, I'm going blind here. So from Shanghai to New York is, where is it? What's the distance? The distance is where's the distance on this? Hold on. Shanghai to New York. Shanghai to New York. Where? Oh, the distance is over here. That's why. Let me move that. It's 7,392 miles. And then at an equal latitude south, Sydney to Santiago is, move that a little bit, is 7,060 miles. So it's almost 300 miles less.
300 miles is a small amount when you're talking 7,000. So it's not a significant difference at all.
But for some reason, in the South, for the shorter flight, they use a Boeing 787-9, which has a longer range than the other one.
Well, it doesn't matter too much about the range. And Flat Earth Dave knows nothing about aircraft. How does he know why they may choose one aircraft over another? In this case, as long as the range is sufficient, doesn't matter. There may be other reasons like economics of flight. There could be any number of reasons. But anyway, Dave is wrong here. He's using false numbers. So here's what he's got on the screen. This Boeing 777-300ER, he's got the range right there, but this is wrong. That's not the range of a 787-9. So he's got 13,649 for the 777-300, 15,000. So the 787-9 has got a published range of 14,000 kilometres. So that doesn't seem right. And the 777-300ER, he's got the same number here, 13,649. So he's got one of the numbers right. The other one, I'm not sure where he got it from. But if his argument was correct, they should be using a 777-200LR, which has a 15,800 range, and not the Dreamliner. So I think Dave is busted there on that one.
So for the shorter flight, they use the longer range plane in the South. For the longer flight, allegedly, they use the shorter.
It's not that much shorter. They're very similar distance, and that's false information anyway. And it's a nothing burger, as they say.
The shorter route plane. That makes no sense whatsoever.
It only makes no sense because you're using the wrong numbers and a nonsensical argument.
That doesn't work. And if we actually look at
well, of course it can work. If the range of the aircraft is greater than the distance of the flight, it works. What do you mean it doesn't work? Where it doesn't work is the flat Earth, where the range of the aircraft is less than the distance of the flight. That's where it doesn't work. That's what you should be looking at.
At a Boeing 787-9, right? It goes 650 miles per hour. That's the cruising speed of that airplane, right? So Santiago to Auckland is 5,650 miles on the globe. That would mean at 13-hour flight time, they'd be going 434 miles per hour. Do you know an airplane that wants to go 434 miles per hour when it could go 650, right? Then you add in a tailwind, which we saw a 350-mile-an-hour tailwind. It's going over 1,000 miles an hour. It makes perfect sense.
Dave, real.
Wait. So, where did he get this 350-mile-an-hour tailwind from? It doesn't exist. So all these numbers are all wrong, and let's look at the real numbers. So here's a good example where you can fudge a few numbers and get a completely false result. So let's correct these. So no, the aircraft has a cruising speed of about 560 mile an hour, not 650. So it's exaggerated the cruising speed. The distance Santiago to Auckland is not 5,650. It's typically 6,150 miles. So he's underestimated the distance, overestimated the speed. The flight time is not 13 hours. It's 11 3/4 hours. So higher number here, lower number here. This number's too big. And so he ends up with an unreasonably and incorrect low figure of 434 miles per hour, whereas the correct number using the correct figures is 523 miles an hour, this one here. Now, if we plug in the correct numbers, so 560 miles an hour, there's no tailwind on the flight from Santiago to Sydney. In general, it's a 30 mile per hour headwind. So this would give us the average speed the plane travels at 530 miles per hour, which is not too far away from what we worked out, as it should be 523 based on the flight time. Based on the distance, speed, flight time, we worked out 523, not 434. And based on the correct speeds and the correct headwind, it's 530 mile an hour. So when you use the correct numbers, it makes perfect sense only on a globe. And we'll show you the flat Earth numbers. So here, this flight on the flat Earth is 20,500 miles. And because the flight time is 11.75 hours, that would mean on the flat Earth it would have to be travelling 1,744 mile an hour. So which one is the impossible one? Is this one, the 500 odd mile per hour here, is that the impossible one? Or is the 1,744 mile an hour the required flat Earth speed? Is that the impossible one? I wonder how many of you can actually work that out. So just to drive the point home, that it's the complete opposite is true from what Dave is saying. The flat Earth flight is the ridiculous one, because here is the flight mapped on the flat Earth map, and it is flying all the way around there. It's too far for any plane to fly, and the speeds are too great to be able to achieve. 1,700 odd mile an hour is not achievable by a normal plane or even a not so normal plane. So yes, this flight is globe proof.
Quick, Dave, Sean, can you make his screen big so everybody can see it? Sorry,
he didn't make it big.
Sean. Yep, sorry.
Come on, Sean.
It's all
Kind of
good,
host are you?
It needs to be big so that Dave can see it too.
Yeah, well, it's big enough here. Thank you. 77.9, just go real quick, 650 miles per hour. Santiago to Auckland, 5,650 miles on the globe, right? Flight time, 13 hours. That means it's going 434 miles an hour instead of 650. Then there's tailwinds. What airline isn't going to take advantage of a tailwind? And we saw tailwinds at the heights. This flies up to 350 miles an hour.
No, we
That's
didn't
1,000
see that.
miles an hour.
out
That makes
already.
perfect sense.
All
Is
this
there any way to
perfect
get?
sense.
Is there any pilot that can confirm this?
Well, I mean, the published information on these
So there's no pilot that can confirm this. Got it?
airplanes talk about that. I am in contact with a lot of pilots, so I will ask them about it.
So all the published information I've garnered and have displayed some of it here confirms that these flights can only occur on a globe. So I don't know what you're saying there, Dave.
Well, I'm not a pilot, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I can confirm.
Okay. But the first one I showed, 13,000. The range is 13,600 versus 15,300. This is the shorter route of 7,060 miles versus 7,392 miles. It's got the longer range plane is used for the shorter route.
Means
just
nothing.
another preponderance of evidence
No,
for
it's
the
no
flat Earth.
evidence. It doesn't mean anything.
Thank you,
What
Dave.
the evidence is the numbers, the figures. And then anyway, that's wrong. You're using wrong numbers. Yes, when I've used the real numbers, I've analysed the whole thing, and the flight can only happen on a globe.
Thank you.
The emergency flights, that's also important. The individual that put together all that of how, they had the emergencies while transiting in the air and the places that they landed, all that doesn't work on a globe model as well.
Well, this is my favorite one. Sean, am I big again? Am I big, guys? I'm not sure. New Zealand to Argentina, FlightAware says this is the shortest route, right?
There are currently no flights from New Zealand to Argentina direct. So this is a bad example.
pretty nice. And these people that want to go to Argentina. But when we look on a flat Earth, on a globe, it goes across the equator up to San Francisco, Texas, and all the way back down.
It only goes in that direction because there are no direct flights between Auckland and Argentina, but you can get a direct flight Auckland to Santiago and then on to Argentina. Those flights exist.
Ridiculous. And you look at it on a flat Earth map. What did your mother teach you? Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Or perhaps the shortest distance between 2 points on a globe flies over the Southern Ocean.
I don't know how you can ignore this stuff.
Oh, well, it's pretty easy. I mean, you're bringing up incorrect facts and faulty logic. That's how we can ignore it. No problem at all. How can you ignore the southern flights that fly distances that are impossible on a flat Earth? How can you ignore that?
What about flying over the South Pole and coming out on the other side of the globe?
Nobody does it. Nobody goes south from Santiago and pops up in Australia.
No, that's false. I flew south on QF28 from Santiago and I popped up in Australia. And you can see all that documented in another video of mine. But when he said nobody flies south, I've done it. I've been on a plane that flies south. So this is just not true.
Hasn't been done. Been done.
Has been done.
Yeah, if they want to put it all to rest, just do that.
Also, don't forget QF14, which flew south from Argentina and popped up in Australia. Don't forget that one. I've also got a video on that one.
You can fly over the North Pole, right? With the right permits?
Well, this was, people say, well, they did it, I think it was TWA.
This is actually the One More Orbit flight, this one, Dave. Don't even get your facts right. And also, when you go and trace this flight, you're tracing it in the wrong direction.
They went, from the north, they went down, past New York, South America. They allegedly went to the South Pole, back up through Madagascar, up through Europe, and around. And that was circumnavigation, the longest flight. I think it was 46 hours and 30 minutes. Wow, that's amazing. On a flat Earth, where'd it go? On a flat Earth, it looks like this.
Yeah. So that doesn't work on a flat Earth. Thanks, Dave, for pointing that out. Because the Mauritius to Punta-Arenas, this one here, via the South Pole, guess what? That's way too far. You can't do it on a flat Earth. The distance is too great. The plane can't fly that far. The range is insufficient. So the other reason you got to look at this, why would they do this? Why would they spend millions of dollars to fly around on your flat Earth like that? It means nothing. Nobody would worry about that. This is ridiculous. But let's see what Dave says about it.
This is all they did. And they said that they went around the globe. They just flew around the flat Earth.
Well, no. There's no evidence that the Earth is flat. And this is pretty good evidence that it's not, because nobody would bother with that. It's also impossible. The range is impossible.
Right? And then people just buy it because they're unable to think deeply.
Well, that's right. People just buy this stuff. You just point to a map with no evidence and make false statements, and people just buy it. I got it. Well, hopefully we've dealt with the one globe proof, and none of the arguments against it really hold water. So I'm going to claim this 3 Bitcoin. And I'm sending an email to Dave to claim my 3 Bitcoin. And apparently Dave will pay, according to Dave.
Okay? People are like, you got to have your Bitcoin in escrow. You got to have a contract. No, I don't. Okay? My honor. Right? Before you go, well, how do I know you're going to pay? My reputation, my everything is on it. Like, if I don't pay, then I've ruined everything. I swear on my life, I will pay you 6 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof.
Right. So Dave says he'll pay. So we'll give him a chance to pay. But just in case, at the end of the day, the only person that needs to be convinced is the judge. So in case Dave decides not to pay, I will require legal help. So anyone knows a good lawyer who maybe can take this pro bono, or anyone who may want to fund a lawyer, email me. And there's my email address on the screen. And we'll see how we go. Well, thank you very much. That's it for today. And let's see how this pans out. Thank you.